He left home at age 21. He did not return for 29 years. He walked 75,000 miles. Marco Polo traveled 15,000. His name was Abu Abdullah Muhammad Ibn Battuta, born in Tangier, Morocco in 1304. He died in 1368 or 1369. The historical record is not precise about the end, only about the journey. In 1325, at the age of 21, he left Tangier to perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. He planned to be gone a few months. He did not return home for 29 years. In that time, he traveled across North Africa, the Horn of Africa, West Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and China. He visited the courts of sultans and emperors. He crossed the Sahara on camelback and the Indian Ocean by dhow. He survived shipwrecks, battles, plagues, and political intrigue. His travel diary, the Rihla, is one of the greatest documents of the medieval world, and buried within its extraordinary accounts of places and peoples are philosophical insights about human nature that are as precise and relevant today as they were 7 centuries ago. These are the 7 things Ibn Battuta discovered about human nature on the road across 5 continents over 29 years of direct observation. Ibn Battuta arrived as a stranger in dozens of cultures, speaking different languages, following different customs, eating different food. And one thing struck him again and again across every civilization he visited. The impulse to welcome a stranger was universal. The form differed completely. In Mali, the welcome was food eaten on the floor. In China, it was a formal ceremony of tea and protocol. In India, it was a feast of overwhelming generosity. But the underlying impulse, this stranger is here, they need care, I will provide it, appeared in every culture he visited, without exception. His conclusion: hospitality is not a cultural practice, it is a human instinct. What culture provides is the vocabulary, the specific expression of something that existed before any particular civilization gave it a name. What does this mean for you? The next time you encounter a person from a very different background doing something that feels strange, look for the instinct beneath the expression. You will almost always find something recognizable. Ibn Battuta visited the courts of the most powerful rulers of the medieval world, the Sultan of Mali, the Emperor of China, the Sultan of Delhi. And he observed, with the clarity of an outsider, something that insiders in every court struggled to see. Power, in every civilization he visited, produced the same distortions: the concentration of flattery around those who held it, the silence of honest counsel replaced by the sound of agreement, the slow insulation of rulers from the reality of their subjects. He recorded a sultan who had not been told the truth in years, surrounded by advisors who had learned that honesty was dangerous to their position. He recorded his own surprise at how quickly he recognized the same patterns in courts thousands of miles apart. His observation: power does not corrupt because powerful people are different from ordinary people. Power corrupts because the system around it, the incentives it creates for everyone nearby, is the same in every language, every culture, every century. Ibn Battuta left home to reach Mecca. He reached it, and then could not stop moving. Not because he was restless, but because something in the journey itself had become the point. He wrote, "I have indeed, to the best of my ability, considered the interesting aspects of the countries I have visited, and the wonders of the roads I have traveled." The wonders of the roads. Not the destinations, the roads. Every person he met, every crisis he survived, every culture that forced him to question his assumptions, these were not obstacles to arriving somewhere. They were the education. The destination, in every case, turned out to be less transformative than what was required to reach it. The principle: whatever goal you are currently moving toward, the transformation you are seeking does not live at the destination. It lives in who you are required to become on the road to it. What is the road currently asking of you?
One of the consistent threads in the Rihla is Ibn Battuta's surprise, repeated over 29 years, at human generosity. Not the generosity of the rich and powerful, though he recorded that too. The generosity of ordinary people with almost nothing to spare. In sub-Saharan Africa, a family that had never seen someone who looked like him invited him into their home and fed him from their limited provisions. In Central Asia, a nomadic family shared everything they had with a wanderer they would never see again. He concluded that the default human impulse is not selfishness, it is care. Selfishness is what scarcity and fear produce. Given any margin of safety, people default toward generosity more often than any theory of human nature gives them credit for.
Ibn Battuta left Tangier with the possessions of a young man preparing for a significant trip. By the time he was deep into his travels, he had been robbed, shipwrecked, and forced to start again multiple times. And he recorded something surprising. Each time he lost everything and rebuilt, he needed less than before. The first time, losing his possessions was a catastrophe. By the fifth or sixth time, it was almost a relief, a return to what actually mattered. The Sufi tradition he was educated in had a name for this: Zuhd, the voluntary simplification of your relationship with material things. Not poverty, not asceticism. The realization, through direct experience, that most of what you accumulate adds weight without adding quality. Perhaps the most quietly radical observation in the Rihla is Ibn Battuta's consistent note of the absolute certainty that every culture had about the rightness of its own customs. In India, the customs he had grown up with were exotic and strange to his hosts. In China, the Arab customs he carried were equally foreign and occasionally offensive. Every culture, without exception, had the unexamined assumption that its way of doing things was simply the way things were done. The person who has only ever lived in one culture cannot see this. The person who has lived in many sees it everywhere. And seeing it, really seeing it, is one of the most liberating and humbling experiences available to a human being. What assumptions about the world have you inherited from your particular culture that feel like facts, but are actually choices? Ibn Battuta finally returned to Morocco in 1354. He had been gone 29 years. Most of the people he had left behind were dead. He dictated the Rihla, his travel diary, and then, as far as the historical record shows, he stayed home. The man who had been unable to stop moving for 3 decades stopped. And the reason, reading between the lines of the Rihla, was not exhaustion. It was that the thing he had been carrying across 75,000 miles, the thing that made every arrival meaningful, was the knowledge that somewhere there was a place and people that made arrival feel different from transit. Home is not coordinates. It is the relationship that makes returning possible. And the person who has no one to return to is not a traveler. They are simply someone who has not yet stopped moving. 29 years.
75,000 miles, 40 countries, and 7 discoveries about human nature that no classroom, no book, and no theory could have produced. Hospitality is instinct. Power corrupts in every language. The road transforms more than the destination. People are more generous than you expect. The longer the journey, the less you need. Every culture thinks it is the normal one, and home is not a place. It is the people you return to. Ibn Battuta did not set out to become a philosopher. He set out to see. And what he saw across 5 continents and 3 decades was the same human being, wearing 1,000 different costumes, asking the same questions. Subscribe to Desert Mind. New wisdom every week from the Arab world and beyond.